myself again. But it's the only
Caught everybody out there by starting 2 minutes early. Normally we get wrong for being late, Liam.
We do. Normally I've burnt the Ben's tea or something like that, haven't I? I'm running about the chippy and all sorts, honestly. It's been mental.
Now, this is completely strange. We're doing it on a Wednesday, plus it's 7 o'clock. Are the kids in bed?
Not yet, no.
Not yet.
I passed the responsibility on to the wife, so if there's any kids running or cats or anything like that, I'll just have to deal with it as it comes.
Well, we'll get 250 quid off you being framed. Anyway, good evening, everybody. Welcome along to the show. NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and Liam Kennedy, and special guest who you've seen on the Three Amigos a couple of times, Keith Patterson. We thought we'd reunite Liam and Keith on the screen this time because obviously the two of them have obviously spoken in depth over the last few weeks about what Keith is doing. So good evening, Keith. Hope you're well, mate.
Doing great. Never been better.
Good stuff. Excellent. Well, we're here to talk about Newcastle United. We don't want to get bogged down in one subject. There's plenty to talk about, as always. And Liam, let's start first and foremost with that result last night. A game of two halves, I suppose. Newcastle weren't at the races in that first half against Leeds. Second half, there was a bit more of a spirited performance, which obviously came through the fact that Alan St-Maximin had, stepped onto the pitch for the first time in a couple of months. And he made a big difference in that second half.
Yeah, he did. I mean, being brutally honest about the whole thing, we needed a result. We were absolutely desperate for a result yesterday, and we didn't get one. So let's get that out of the way first. But look, if we're going to try and sort of pick it apart and say what the positives were, I thought Fabian Shaw had a really good game. Like I say, I think Miguel Almiron got another goal and looked decent. St. Maximin came off the bench and had a big impact. He's only going to be getting fitter and fitter, and hopefully he's going to have a big impact between now and the end of the season. There was that 25-minute spell in the second half where it looked, Newcastle United for the first time, I would say, in 2 to 3 months, looked like a football team again. And it's the small victories. We've got to try and take some kind of positive from that, because if we don't, then it is really desperation. The big picture, we look at it, it's really difficult to say when Newcastle United are going to get points from moving forward. But there was something there for 20-25 minutes, but we need a whole lot more than that. And you've got to remember, it's got to be caveated with the fact that it wasn't against a great side either. Leeds United can be really got at. They can't defend. They've got a patchwork back line. Players playing out of position. Can't defend set pieces. Well, I'm going to mention set pieces. Unless Andy Carroll was injured, that was inexplicable, not putting Andy Carroll on the pitch when literally Jamal Lascelles was winning every single header that went into the box. You just looked at it and thought, that's perfect. Even just get him on for 15 minutes and just get it in there, because he would have won header after header. But we're used to that with Steve Bruce. It's rare to ever think that his substitutions, unless they're ridiculously obvious, always changes the system in games, have much of an impact. If anything, they have a negative impact on Newcastle United normally. So, look, I'm not going to try and be too negative, because look, everyone out there is doing that for us. It was a really tough watch for 45 minutes, but there was a 25-minute period where I really did, for the first time in a long time, I actually lost myself a little bit in a Newcastle United game where they were really pressing. You could tell there was effort from everybody. There seemed to be an idea and a plan, and they really pushed forward as one. A bit of unity, which is something that we haven't really seen. But look, it's not good enough. I accept that. They need to do that for 90 minutes consistently, because what they did for that 20-25 minutes was basically the bare minimum of what you expect from a football team. But they haven't been getting close to that in recent months. So, yeah, that's probably my take on it. I'm sure Keith probably feels similar as well.
Yeah, Keith, what was your take on that match last night? I mean, I've got to be honest, every game that we'll go into at this moment in time, I predict doom and gloom. I can't see us winning. I can't see us scoring goals. There was that bright spot. Almiron took his goal well, first goal in over 14 hours of football. ASM came on. There was bright sparks there. It's quite clear that he's head and shoulders, above most of his teammates in the attacking field. So, there was some bright moments to take out of it. Is there enough, to encourage you that, this team under this current manager can escape the drop?
The thing that annoyed me most, it wasn't so much how it finished, it was how it started. We started last night against a team who was lost last 3 games, hadn't scored, and they'd conceded more goals in the Premiership than any other side away from home. And to set the team up like that, it doesn't matter what number you come up with, it's 5 3s, 4 2 1s, and all these false 10s. He set the team up to hang on. He set the team up as though we were playing at Liverpool. We were playing a team that were playing awful. It's the same mentality when we play against the likes of Sheffield United, who hadn't won since me nana was a kid. And then we play against teams like Fulham and West Brom. You should be battering these people. And you're playing St James's, you should be attacking them. And I'll tell you something, it's like robbing a bank with a butter knife. He just has no balls to put a team out there that convinces me we're going to have a go at people. And when somebody said to me today, it says it's not so much what you play at the back, because I think he puts enough at the back. I think it's the gap between the back and the front that's the problem. And I said many times, Paul's a solicitor, he says, I just wish they'd move 30 yards up the field. And so much change at half time. You'd love to think it was that new coach came in and said, out the way, Brucey, I'm going to take over. But something changed, and all of a sudden, there was some life, in the second half. And people were saying, well, wasn't that better? I said, no, because we had an uphill battle. We went out the second half with a mountain to climb. And yes, it was better. But seriously, Leeds at home, just being promoted, 255 passes Leeds had in the first half. We had 145. 145 to 255. You've been battered at home off a team that's not great. But I'll tell you what, a team that's better set up and a manager knows what he's talking about and a team that believe. And for me, hats off to Leeds because we were second best. Take no bones. Second half we were better. The second half we were probably the better team. But this is Newcastle at home, desperate for points. And I've got to say, first half I was just massively disappointed.
Yeah, I would agree. News today, of course, Keith's already alluded to it, Liam, that Graeme Jones has arrived at St James's Park. Quite a fanfare for someone coming in as a coach to help the manager, and certainly seems to have gone down like a lead balloon with Steve Bruce. But, what's your take on the arrival of Graeme Jones, and what do you think he can bring to the Newcastle backroom?
So we'll roll it back to the start. Well, it was the weekend when there was suggestions that it was Graeme Jones coming in. Steve Bruce was asked about it after the Aston Villa game, and really sharply basically gave the shut up to the reporter who asked him that. That's not the kind of reaction you give to something that's firstly, well, you can give the reaction that's true, but if you then follow it up with a couple of questions on the Monday whereby he basically just says, yeah, well, another voice around the training ground's a good thing, another pair of eyes. That's not the type of thing you say about somebody that you've picked, a friend of yours, somebody that you've cherry-picked to really improve your team. You'd maybe say, well, look, he's going to work with him, he's going to do this. You'd be excited. You'd be speaking positively about it. I think that's a real telltale sign. Some really interesting stuff with the club's social media today. I've never seen a joint assistant manager, he's joint assistant manager with two other blokes, remember, get, like you said, the fanfare that he's had on social media today. We had him sitting in a suit in front of all the strips in the boardroom. It looked like a manager. It looked like a new manager coming in. Now, not for 1 second I'm not saying that he is a new manager coming in, but it's quite clear for anybody with a few brain cells to tell that Steve Bruce has not selected this coach, and it's been enforced on him from above. There's some people out there denying that, but I do not believe that to be the case. And that's not just me guessing from the things that I've just said. The information that I have is that he was selected by somebody else, and it was forced upon him. Look, I think he's okay with it. I don't think he's totally against it. But it does look slightly concerning that the comments that he said today, Graeme Jones, where he talks about transforming the style and getting players involved that aren't involved. And there was a lot of things that he said today, which he spoke like a manager. He wore the suit. He looked like a manager. Very, very strange goings on. And I've never seen a coach added to a coaching staff get the big interview, the big video interview, the big photographs in the boardroom. Have you? I've never seen it. So I'll say there's got to be alarm bells with people ringing here. Are they alarm bells? There's a lot of people out there who I speak to who say anybody but Bruce. There's loads of people out there who would say that. They would take literally anybody but Steve Bruce. And look, I totally understand that. Steve Bruce has proven absolutely nothing since he said, I'll do it my way. All Newcastle United have done is do it the same way they've done it for 18 months. whereby the stats are rubbish, the possession's rubbish, they don't create chances, they don't look like creating chances, and they continue conceding goals. So could it really be any worse if Graeme Jones comes in and shakes things up a little bit behind the scenes? If that upsets Steve Bruce, is that really the end of the world as well? I mean, it could shake things up in a positive way. Look, it could shake things up in a negative way, but can we really get much worse than what we've seen, particularly over the last 2 months? I would argue that we can't.
Keith, what's your take on the appointment of Graeme Jones? I mean, a Gateshead lad, he's got to be able to coach people. We're not getting all sentimental because he's a Geordie, but it was a strange unveiling today.
I'm a fan, so the difference between me and Liam is I'm allowed to. I haven't got a job to lose, if you know what I mean. So for me, I've heard the same stories, but from 2 trusted sources, that he was put in there by Graham Carr, that he's now working with the club. Carr is well known to everybody, and he brought the French Revolution, but he hasn't become a non-footballing man overnight, and apparently he's got the trust of the people at the top. And the story I've had, and it came from 2 sources, and then a third confirmed, was that he picked Graeme Jones. That if you talk to someone with a knowledge of like Steve Hasty, he'll tell you that he'll tell you a good story actually on Friday night probably about Graeme Jones and his affiliation with Ben Dawson, who again, when you talk to people, they say he's well thought of within the club.
Nice lad, so, Ben. I've got to know him well while I was there. Working with Rafa. Nice kid.
They say he's a good lad, and the fact he's worked with Rafa. I mean, I was talking to a guy today, and I said, if your kid was a coach, and they turn around and says, Dad, I've been offered 3 jobs, and one of them's with Pochettino, and the other one was with Rafa. He says, but I've got the chance of working near home, and I won't have to move away. I can work with Steve Bruce. Would you let your Ben go and work in that? I mean, when young Grealish from Aston Villa said, when he was at Villa, Bruce walked on the training ground, threw the ball and said, come on lads, let's get on with it. And I don't think Grealish would sacrifice his credibility to make that up. That's what I believe. But I could imagine it. And people you talk to in football say Bruce is a nice bloke. I mean, I don't know him, I've never met him, so what I don't want to do is chastise him, but by the same token, I don't want to big him up and talk him up. And I understand what it's like to work with people and get the most out of people. And when I look at Steve Bruce, I see somebody that's been a chancer. I think he's a man who's trying to hang on to that job for every number of days or weeks he can keep it going. And the reason I say that, I'm supported with, he turned around at the meeting after doing what was encouraging. If he saw something encouraging last week, I mean, I'd love him to share what was encouraging. In that last game at Villa. But then he said it was encouraging. Then he said, I'm really looking forward to getting Fraser back, who he'd barely seen, and St Maxim, who you hear he doesn't really get on with. When you look at the facts of that, in 1163 minutes, they've got 1 goal and 2 assists between them. So where's he bringing that from? Is that not just it's going to take a few weeks to get them back, that's going to give me a few more weeks of my job? Because I don't think he's genuinely coming over saying, these are going to be the saviour. And, read an article today where don't expect them to be the saviour because they don't get enough goals. But St Maxim looked a different class to anybody last night. But go back to Graeme Jones, can't be any worse. And Steve Hasty on Friday will tell you a cracking story about when they were coaching Northumberland FA. I think their Jed nearly got on. I think he nearly got on the course there, Jed. But the reality is they're known to each other. And for me, I think Graham Carr, as a football man, has been told by Ashley. Ashley hasn't told me this, but I believe that he'll have turned around and said, we need a contingency plan. And I think Bruce he's done the 3 cardinal sins. He's criticised the fans, which is your custom, as you never do in life. He's criticised the press, which is a fatal thing as well. And then he's criticised his predecessor, who was a world-class coach, and he's probably not in the position to comment on Rafa's ability because he's not in that league.
Yeah, interesting.
It'll be like one of you two talking to me about good looks. You're not quite there.
A big shout out to our sponsor this month, oldcoachhousedistillery.co.uk, the world's first alcohol-free distillery. Visit their website, enter code OCHD to claim your introductory 10% discount and get the most out of your Mindful Dry January. Gin-esque is the drink that they've been pushing this month. I did see a lovely tweet from Cameron from their distillery to say that if Keith helps to get this takeover through, he's got some free gin coming his way. So there you are, some alcohol-free gin for you, mate. Big shout out to John at QTech as well, qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables and other things in Wallsend in Newcastle. And also a big shout out to my good friend John at Jab, who designs all of our artwork and all of our flyers, and looking forward to seeing what he comes up with the three amigos tomorrow. It's always a laugh. Don't forget, you can also subscribe to our channel. Our channel is free. We do 7 shows a week, and sometimes we do the odd one as well. If you want to subscribe, simply click that little emblem down in the bottom right hand side, and that's it. You can subscribe to the channel. Over 300 new subscribers last week, so welcome to you. Click like on the channel, and if you click share, that sends it out to your Twitter or your Facebook or whatever. Doesn't take any information or anything, but please do that. That all helps. Plenty thumbs up though, and if you like, it does help us. Over 1,100 watching live tonight, which is a new record for NUFC matters. So thanks very much for tuning in. Liam, Rafa Benitez is a name which we have mentioned many times. Everybody knows my relationship with Rafa and that I'm a big fan. He's out of work now, Liam. It's an interesting time for him to be out of work with Keith still riding in on his horse and Nick DeMarco riding in on his horse, and hopefully some kind of settlement can be made at some point somewhere along the line for this deal to go through. Is Rafa waiting for this job, do you think?
Steve, you're probably in a slightly better position than me to answer that kind of thing, but do I think he'll wait? Look, I think Rafa in the past, and this isn't going to be a criticism because everybody who watches the show regularly knows how much I love Rafa Benitez. Was a captivating person to talk to. Had a good relationship with him. Just a fantastic man as well as manager. Real football person, the type of guy you could stand and speak for hours with. When they went on the mid-season trip to Spain in his final season, I went there and stood there and spoke to him in their hotel for hours on end, just about stories about Real Madrid, about everything. Look, I think he's a fantastic bloke. One thing you could criticise Rafa Benitez in his career for doing is jumping into jobs that maybe aren't the best next career move for him. He had issues at Chelsea, did really well, of course, but had issues there. Is still loved by Roman Abramovich by all accounts as well. Little ones like Inter Milan was a struggle. Real Madrid ended up being a struggle. And of course, he's gone to China now, which wasn't a struggle, but definitely he got over there and realised, particularly with the rule changes, that there was a big glass ceiling. And obviously, I think COVID was the final straw, just not being able to get over and back and things like that, not being able to get the players in that he wanted. So my point is, would he jump if a job came up? Possibly. That would be my big concern. I think he is the man the PCP want to take over at Newcastle United. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And it would be naive to think that talks haven't taken place in that regard. But if Leicester City comes up, Brendan Rodgers jumps and gets another job potentially. If a Leicester City comes up, will Rafa Benitez hang around for Newcastle takeover that may or may not happen, despite the fact that we're very confident here? I think he possibly would jump into another job. There is a possibility that he could do that. This is not an absolute given that Rafa Benitez will turn up back in Newcastle United. But I do think there is a strong possibility if he remains patient. He hasn't done that a lot in his career. He loves to work. He's not somebody that is happy sitting on the couch watching TV, watching football on TV. He's the type of guy who just has to graft. He just doesn't like sitting back and seeing. If he sees a football team on the telly where he thinks, I can be involved there and I could be having an impact, he'll jump and he'll go and he'll want to do that. That would be my biggest concern with the Rafa Benitez situation, that if this takeover and process drags on, let's move from weeks to months, to say if we're saying end of the summer, for example, I think Rafa Benitez will probably get another job by then. But if it's a shorter term thing, maybe a couple of months or so, which is well within the possibility of this deal, I think Rafa Benitez could well end up at Newcastle United. Look, the reasons why he left China aren't necessarily 100% takeover related. There are other reasons as to why he's left China. I think it's been he talks about being happy there. I think it's been widely widely suggested that he wasn't the happiest manager over there, to be honest. Not just because of the results and the language barrier, which was a big initial problem, but this idea that there's been China's become a lot more insular in terms of investment. They don't want the players coming in from outside. The wage caps that have been brought in for players. He couldn't get the players he wanted. And the club that he's at has a glass ceiling. It isn't one of the big backed Chinese clubs. Not financially, I mean, sort of government backed and that kind of thing. And it was only so far Rafa could ever take them, despite the fantastic project. And by all accounts, he's done a really good job building the infrastructure of that club behind the scenes. But that's what he wanted to do here. And it would be lovely to think that he could come here with that blank canvas, because it is a blank canvas. Anybody who follows my Twitter will know I was driving past Benton, the training base last night, because there was a couple of vegetables hanging on the outside on the gate. But you look at a place like that, and it's just so far behind. Look, I've been to Sunderland's training ground. Sunderland in League One now, and Sunderland have got a better training ground and infrastructure than Newcastle United. It's quite incredible. It really is. There's clubs all over the Championship have spent money to improve their infrastructure and become better football clubs. Newcastle United have stagnated, and Mike Ashley's never wanted Newcastle United to become the football club that we all know it should be.
Keith, should Rafa Benitez be approached by Lee Charnley and asked to come back to see whether there's any middle ground? I know that obviously the relationship, soured, and that was the reason that Rafa left. However, if he came to him with an offer and said, would you come till the end of the season? Do you think Rafa would potentially say, there's a takeover potentially going to happen? I could be in there. I could be already feet under the desk and get ahead of the game, if you like. And then essentially, if the takeover didn't go ahead, then he could leave. Just give him a contract till the end of the season, and then Rafa puts himself back in the shop window. He does a job at Newcastle, keeps them up, and everyone's a winner.
I think it's funny because you get this a lot on Twitter where people are asking that question, and the people are trying to make it be simpler and easier than what it is. But I think it's a lot harder. And I'm not a negative person by nature, and I always want to see positivity. But I think what you're doing there is underestimating the dislike for Rafa probably in the club. I don't think the club had an easy journey. And the reason why is because the fans, us, we got behind Rafa and support the life out of him to the detriment of the club. So what we did is we all took the Rafa side, and Rafa, if you like, had all the praise, and the club pretty much, were the bad guys. To bring him back in for a short period would be saying to Rafa, as you said, put him in the shop window. But is that not letting Rafa risk a relegation after a Chinese model that didn't go so well? And is it not also stopping Rafa getting another job with owners he might want to believe in? But I think Rafa's dislike for the club and the club's dislikes for Rafa might be greater than what we're bringing on here. But I'd like to answer it quickly and say, for me, I would like to stay focused on the takeover possibility, steadying the ship, getting a couple of players in, and I'm sure that Rafa's contact with the potential buyers. I think if you get these buyers, you get Rafa, because I think the relationship's that good between them, and I think they would have the sway that if they came at the club, there's nowhere else he would go. I think this is the place he wants to go to, and I think that he did leave China because of COVID. But I also think he freed himself up to stop any compensation issues or missing out on this job. I think he made himself available. And I think he'll have had positive vibes from the people who hope to buy the club, that they're confident they can get the deal done. So you see various newspaper articles criticising how potential buyers don't do a job. Christ, if after Steve Bruce they're going to bring Rafa Benitez with them, well, that'll keep me quiet for the first year. Just let Rafa play out who he is, what he did, and give him proper funds, because seriously, we embarrassed Manchester City with effort and guile at St James's with a team that should never have got close to Man City. When Man City were on the top of the game, Newcastle bullied them out of result, and there's only Benitez could do that. And to me, somebody said, who do you get after Bruce? And I said, well, he was 11th choice. I wonder who was 12th, 13th, 14th and 15th. Do you know what I mean? Because I'd love to know who was number 8, 9 and 10 choice. I bet they were donkeys, like. Do you know what I mean? And we've got Bruce. Paid money for him off Sheffield Wednesday. And he didn't, they weren't top by any means. And to pay money to bring him in. And seriously, I think he's lost self-belief. I think the lad's lost the dressing room. I think he's lost the city. And I think he's the luckiest man walking because there's no plate and there's no fans in the ground. Could you imagine going to St James's today, 52,000, and him coming out there, waving to the crowd? God, I tell you what.
Imagine away from home. Imagine away from home as well, though. Imagine, like, say you had 3,000 going somewhere else.
No, because away would be worse, actually.
Well, that Villa game was very, very lucky that he didn't have a full house there because those Villa fans would have given him pelters. They would have given him pelters. They would have been giving us stick, giving him pelters, and Newcastle fans would have been singing Rafa Benitez and Bruce out.
Yeah. Today, when I come on tonight, I thought, God, we're coming on this show tonight, and my mate sat there in the middle, and I'm thinking to myself, how are we going to do it? Because if me and Liam get any criticism, it's about often for telling the truth. That's what we get criticism for. I thought, put us both on together, like, all you're getting is two people that tell you what they actually see. Liam reports truth, what he sees. Every time we give him evidence, he winds me up because he goes and checks the life out of it. And I say, it's true, man, just print it. And he just says, sure up, Keith. And he just tells us to get lost. And then he'll disappear. Once he disappeared for 3 days. And then when he was ringing us, I was like snoring down the phone, saying, you're still alive. And that. But that's him doing his job, because what he does, he meticulously has to make sure articles work. But when you talk about the club, and you talk about these people, like me and Liam are, I guess, pro takeover, in this, but I thought, what about the fans coming on tonight? And I thought about them, and I tried to divorce what I'm doing with NCSL, divorce what Liam does for a living, and thought, we're going to get an audience of people that's going to come on here. 2 points out the last 27. 2 points. And we're going to talk questions about a lad from Bournemouth who people say, is he the answer, is he not? But I got asked the question from somebody quite important. It said, who do you think could turn around Newcastle better than Steve Bruce? And I said, 4 people. I said, Rafa Benitez, Alan Shearer and Kevin Keegan. They'd all have an impact in the dressing room. And I said, but none of them would come. So who's the 4th? I said, me Nana. Nana's probably got more tactical awareness. But from us, I just think myself, we've got to remember that we're at the bottom, and we shouldn't overlook the fact of there was a bit of hope in the second half last night, but we talked about Rafa Benitez and we've talked about Steve Bruce in the same 5 minutes, and if Rafa come in there tomorrow, he'd finish mid-table. That's the difference. And I think if some other managers come in there, we'd finish mid-table. But I get worried when people talk about go and get Eddie Howe, because why would he come when he knows it's Rafa's job when the takeover happens? And he took it side down, and he's got Wilson and Fraser didn't want to play for him. Why? You know what I mean? And somebody else said Duncan Ferguson, and somebody else said Nigel Pearson. But to me, I just hope Graham Carr plus 2 coaches can turn it around, because we're in the shit.
Yeah, no, we are. Liam, let's talk a little bit about the relationship between you and Keith, I suppose, because you came on the scene. NCS. No, I know that. And NCSL comes on the scene, and from your perspective, as a journalist, you do need to check people's credentials. But just a little bit about working with Keith.
It's been challenging, but it's been really enlightening. It's been an incredible experience, to be honest. Just been shared some unbelievable information, stuff that would make your jaw drop when you hear it. Stuff that isn't even out there in the public domain. Some of it, it's been really good speaking to Keith. We talk about his credentials. It didn't really take as long to realise that he was honest and straight up guy. If he wants to tell you something, he'll tell you. If he doesn't like something, he'll tell you he doesn't like it. And that's the type of people that you really want to deal with in life, because you know where you stand. And since day one, I remember I had a phone conversation with Keith. Probably would have been going nigh on 4 or 5 months now. And it was a good, I think we were on the phone for about 2.5 hours, our first phone conversation. And it was just me picking the brains of Keith, working out how and why are you doing this? Why do you want to do this? And I remember him saying, look, I don't want anything out of this. What I want to see Newcastle United win a trophy. And that was enough for me. That was exactly what Keith wanted. He wanted the same as me. And he wants the same as everybody else out there. He wants to see Newcastle United succeed. He wants Newcastle United to be the best version of Newcastle United that can possibly be. And he's put his own money where his mouth is and stood up where a lot of people wouldn't stand up. And I really applaud him for that. And honestly, it started as a contact journalist relationship. And like I say, I've been down to meet Keith in person, been to his house, COVID safe, of course, when we could. And we've built up a friendship. I speak to Keith every day. I speak to him more than most of my mates. You know what I mean? It's not just once a day. It's sometimes 4 and 5 times a day. And it's not always about the stories or football. We'll just have a bit crack sometimes. And I would say honestly, it's been a really positive experience. And like I say, there's been a lot of criticism from Keith's way, really unjust criticism, been really, really unfair. And NCSL have been sort of painted out as some kind of company that the links to war fund. All they want to do is take your money. They're fraudsters. They're not who they say they are. They're doing this, they're doing that. And it's all been on social media. There's been so many accusations towards Keith and NCSL, and it is absolutely incredible. If people just peel all those layers back and all your preconceptions and just realise it's a bloke who's a Newcastle United fan who stuck his money in his hand in his pocket, got his own money out and fought for this deal. That is it. There is no agenda. There's no hidden, I want to take a bit of money from me here or there, or there isn't any look, he wants this out of it, and he wants his statue, which he does. He'll not admit it, but he does want his statue.
That's my fault. That I said that. I said that on the show, and of course it gets picked up by all the trolls and all the critics. I said it tongue in cheek.
Statue. He does.
I tell you what, if there's a statue there, I'll be a pigeon.
Honest to God, you know what I mean. You say one thing on the air, and it just gets.
Honestly.
It does, yeah. Score updates for those of you who are interested. Burnley 1, Villa 2. There's about 16 minutes left in that game. And 68 minutes played at Stamford Bridge. And it's still Chelsea 0, Wolves 0. We're going to have Steve Hasty on in about 15 minutes, of course, just to talk a little bit about the Food Bank's latest initiative, something which we launched on Matchday Live at the weekend. And Steve's just going to come on and have a chat about it, show you how you can donate to the Food Bank through the virtual bucket idea. So looking forward to getting Steve on to talk about that. We are deliberately avoiding one subject, and that is because we don't want the show to be taken over by it. And of course, that's the dreaded T word. So we are on for 2 hours tonight, so that is the reason. I'm sure we will come to that in due course. But we do want to talk about players, and obviously we have a new coach coming in today, but rumours afoot, Liam, that there are players on their way. Might only be loan players, but players indeed are coming to St James's Park. Now, we had a pretty good January last time round under Steve Bruce with 3 loan deals towards the end of the window. None of them really set the world on fire, but it's 3 extra bodies, and we all know the 3 players in a dressing room can sometimes ignite a dressing room. So what's the situation with players coming in first?
So it's been a strange window because the noises coming out initially in the first couple of days in the run up to the window were that Newcastle United were ready to maybe do a couple of deals. No money to be spent, but loan deals would be on the agenda. Then very quickly in that first week of the window, it changed. There was a distinct narrative coming out from the football club and from Steve Bruce and people around him that there was no deals getting done at this football club. I think that's pretty much been the case up until the weekend where things they've looked at it and thought, we have to freshen this up. It's just not working. And look, I tend to agree with that. I do think if you've got the capacity within the squad to bring in a couple of players, and that's mainly dependent on them letting players go, but there are players who are interested, football clubs, and that's going to be the key. If Newcastle United can shift 2 or 3 players, they've got 2 or 3 lined up ready to come. So it could be an interesting last few days. The window closes at 11 p.m. on Monday night next week. So it's going to be one to watch. And I think Matt Ritchie's the obvious one. Matt Ritchie's wanted by Bournemouth. He was wanted by Bournemouth previously. The wages were the problem. I don't foresee that being a problem this time around. It sounds like they might be able to come to agreement before the end of the window. I'm not saying that's going to happen now, in the next 10 minutes or in the next day, but I would expect we might see Matt Ritchie leave the football club between now and next Monday. DeAndre Yedlin's one that's up in the air. The visa issues, I don't know the situation. If anybody asks that question, I don't know what the situation is at the moment with that. It's problematic that they've got a player within their 25-man squad who can't play football until that's sorted out. Emil Kraft's a player that we've reportedly seen was on the way out. He's one that I would quite happily like to see the back of. I think he's not a defend. He can't defend for a fullback, and he offers absolutely nothing going forward. Every time he crosses the halfway line, you'll see his crosses end up going in the back of the stand. He's just not a good footballer. I don't get where paying £5 million came from with him. There's some things ticking over, and I see a lot of people on social media talking about Jethro Willems. Jethro Willems is a player that was offered to Newcastle United. He's a player that there has been some talks to and fro. I think the club are going to have to bring his demands down. Effectively, I've talked in here before about there being a hurdle, and there you are, there's your hurdle. I think they'll have to bring his demands down at some point and sort that out. But also, there's big problems. There's concerns about his injury, the injury that he suffered, the knee injury last January. There is concerns. He's been fit, or supposedly fit at Eintracht Frankfurt for the best part of a couple of months now, and still hasn't kicked the ball for them. That's probably a tell that there's something not quite right there. But if it was a short-term deal, it may be worth the risk. But is he the type of player to come in and really have a big impact initially? I would doubt that. So it's not one I would be really holding my breath for. I've seen people today talk about Josh King. Josh King's a player who might leave. He's going to get 6 months left at Bournemouth. But is he someone that's going to end up in Newcastle United? I think the money's too big, to be honest. I think they would charge a fee for a start, even though Ritchie's going there. You couldn't really, that wouldn't be a fair trade, a Ritchie for a King, to be honest. I've seen some people suggesting that. And wages, beyond that though, he's a lad who's come at the end of his contract, as Willems was. He's probably somebody looking, thinking, right, I'm a free agent soon, that's my big payday. Because obviously when people don't pay a fee, you'll get a big wage. Hence, obviously, Jeff Hendrick did it, and Ryan Fraser did it here. They let the contracts run down and get a bigger pay out of it. So yeah, there's lots of things taking over. Hamza Chowdhury, the other one. I believe that one is one that's been really taking over since about December. And I think it's one that Newcastle United can win. I know Fulham also quite fancy him as well. And I think that's one that you could well see turn up in Newcastle United, because is he the type of player we need? I'm not a massive fan of him. I'll be honest with you. It's nothing to do with the Ritchie thing. Look, you look past that. But he's quite a defensive midfielder. Is that really what we want to add into the midfield? I'm not sure. Maybe the idea could be you bring a Hamza Chowdhury in, play him in there with an Isaac Hayden, and then just try and unleash St. Maximin, Almiron, Fraser, and Wilson just to roam a bit freer further up the park. That could be the thought process behind it. But yeah, he's an okay player. England at 21, found game time really hard to come by because Leicester have a really good combative centre midfield, likes of Ndidi and players like that, and Tielemans, and it's really difficult to get in there. So it's not that he's a bad player that he can't get in at Leicester. He's got some good players in front of him. But I don't know whether he is the answer. Look, I hope I'm wrong. I hope he comes in here and really shows that midfield up, brings a bit of legs in there, and really just makes players around him look much better. And if he does that, then we've got half a chance. But I think this squad could do with a bit of freshening up. We need to... I talked about it earlier in the week. I wrote a story on it. It's about rolling the dice a little bit. Maybe you'll have to look at a squad. If I'm a manager there now, I maybe look at our squad and say, right, so... But there's people who want Dwight Gale. Do I let him go then? I know I'd rather keep him if I'm building a squad, but so we've got 6 months left. Let him go and I might be able to bring someone else in. I'd say the same with the Jacob Murphy. Jacob Murphy's only got 6 months. If you let him go now, you might be able to bring somebody else in. DeAndre Yedlin, yes, he said he wants to keep him around, but will he, is it worth letting players go who you might not want to let go initially, just to make sure you freshen things up? Because Dwight Gale isn't having an impact on the first team at Newcastle United. So is he really worth hanging on to sit on a bench when you could bring somebody in, even in a different position, who might make an impact in that team? Because Bruce needs it. He really needs it. Graeme Jones needs it. Bruce needs it. Whoever you think might be running pull the strings now. But this club needs a freshening up. If it's not going to happen at the top, which I'm pretty certain, been saying on here for weeks, it isn't going to happen. If it's not going to happen at the top, it needs to happen on the pitch, and they have to get on with it. We've only got, what days are Wednesday? We've got a few days. We've only got the run up to the weekend and then Monday. And I think they can probably do another couple of deals between now and then, but it's going to be a case of getting players out. Richie is most likely to be one of those. Yedlin, Pratt could well be another. And Dwight Gale is one that I always sort of weigh up on here. He's talked. I was in a press conference with Steve Bruce just before Christmas, and he talked about Dwight Gale saying he was going to try. He was doing everything he possibly could to get that lad a new contract at Newcastle United. I'd be very surprised if he gets a new contract in Newcastle United, especially on the terms that he's got at the moment, because he's a mid to high end paid Premier League player for a lad who doesn't really have much of an impact on the pitch. So don't think he's going to get that kind of deal again at Newcastle United. So if that's the case, just let him go. If somebody wants to take him, roll the dice and get somebody else in. I don't see what problem there is with that.
No, wow, 2 goals in 2 minutes. Who said football was a funny old game? Jimmy Greaves, I think. Burnley 3, Villa 2 now. Dwight McNeil and Chris Wood scoring 2 quick goals to put the team that's directly above Newcastle in the driving seat with about 12 minutes left. Chelsea still 0-0 with Wolves. Keith, players coming in. It would be handy, but... you know, it's as always, Mike Ashley, economical with his cash, shall we say. And again, he's trying to sell the club. So why would he spend fortunes on players? Loan deals is probably all we're going to get in this window.
I think when you talk about Jetra, I got some feedback out of a mate who's probably on the short night called Ed Jansen. He's a Dutch lad, a big Utrecht fan, and he's my big pal out in Holland, and he did a lot of coaching. And what he said about Willens, he said, yeah, good player, very good. He said, but the injury was a lot worse than a lot of people in the UK know about. So the word in Holland is that is a bad injury. And I think if he came back, because he's out of contract, he wants king's ransom. You know, and the deal we got told about was that it is major money what he wants. Big wages and signing on for hand. And he's walking around on a knee that Ed described to me. That could explode. And I've had 3 cruciate injuries. I wasn't playing for Holland, but never mind the day. But I know they're very hard. First time I'd done twice with a dead body Gaddafi, and the third time with the hamstring. And they take a hell of a lot of recovering over. And I know surgery's better these days, but get your anterior cruciate going, and you'll come back the same way. Some people describe him as being worse than a broken leg. So for a guy to come back, hasn't played. Liam's hit it right on the head. Liam's saying, you tell me he's been fit for 2 months, why isn't a game? Because you know how it works. They'll be wanting to get him a game to get him away. So if he was fit, they'd be throwing him in, showing people that he was fit, and that'd get him a contract. But I don't know. I think he's a cracking player. I really like him. But I think you'd have to do a pay-as-you-play kind of deal, and I don't think that fits with his mentality. I spoke to people about Brandon Williams, and because that was rumoured, and they said that the word was that they hadn't been offered Brandon Williams. So, and when you talk about other players, we mentioned Wiltshire on here a while ago, and people said, "Would you take him?" Aye, because Wiltshire's been a player Shelby's never been, and it's just choice, isn't it? Because I'm just a fan with no bigger voice than all them out there. Every fan's got a view, and for me, Jack Wilshire's played at a level that Hendricks never played at, and that Shelby hasn't played at, and he has some attacking. He has more Robert Lee in them than they have, and I just see them pinging balls 40 yards, and I think if we keep pinging balls 40 yards to forwards, we're going down. That's what I think. So for me, I'd rather see somebody with like a Kabay kind of player. I know we can't afford that, and I know we're going to make that signing, but can Mata not be brought out at the end of the season out of Man United? He's not getting a game. There's got to be somebody in some team that's got a creative midfield player. But I don't even think our middle of midfielders stick their leg in. I mean, I wouldn't mind playing the midfield against them. I'd take them off waist height. They don't look hungry. The players don't look as though it's live or die. They don't seem to realise how close we are near relegation. So when you talk about players coming in, it's got to be midfield. But again, I'll go back to mine. I'd put Rondon in because I think Rondon's, I like Carroll, but I think Rondon's a fit Carroll. And I think Rondon and Wilson. I think Rondon gives a total side to the game that will bring SM and Almiron alive. I think Rondon holds balls up as good as any player I've seen. I mean, he come in and he was, the lad didn't have stability when he came to Newcastle. He wasn't on a 3-year contract, but he held the ball up and he scored goals in bad teams, or in difficult fixtures, I should say. And I just think that Rondon next to Wilson, then let Gale go. You know what I mean? Bring Carroll on as an impact sub when you can, but we're missing a creative midfielder and we're missing a striker for me.
Yeah, okay, good stuff. Still the same scorelines, 4 minutes to go. Burnley 3, Villa 2, Chelsea 0, Wolves 0. Going to bring Steve Hasty in now. Good evening, Steve.
Good evening, guys. How are you?
Hello, mate.
Yeah, good to see you, mate. Good to see you. And just because we didn't get much of a chance on Friday because none of us could stop talking, we didn't launch the food bank for the new initiative, and we did do a little bit of a soft launch, I would call it, on the on the match day live. But I think it got lost a bit in there, and I did want to get you in just in case we ended up in the same kind of situation again on Friday. So tell us a little bit about it, Steve, and what the idea is.
Well, the idea, obviously, we've got no games, so we're not attending Strawberry Place and haven't been since last March. And the amount of money that was collected on match days was phenomenal. The generosity of Newcastle fans cannot be questioned by anybody out there. But that's left a huge hole, and we filled that hole quite well as supporters with online donations, with raffles, with all sorts of great ideas and great support financially. But we wanted to do something that we thought could replicate the match day experience, but online, because we're all watching the games online or watch them on TV. And John from QTech contacted me and said, "Have you ever thought of putting a virtual bucket?" And I went, "What's a virtual bucket? You know what? Come on, John, you need to explain this a little bit better to me." And after a conversation that seemed to go on forever, I must admit, because it just wasn't clicking with me, because I'm not that IT literate. He explained that he had this facility whereby we could have a little bucket online, create our own little website, something that by the way, that NUFC Food Bank has never ever had. We've never had a presence online. And what we said was we would use Twitter, create a separate Twitter account, link it to the normal Food Bank Twitter account, and call it the Match Day Bucket. And basically, you can go on, you can use it, you can pin it, and you can stick it. You can stick a donation of anything from £1 to whatever you like. And we in the first week we held it to £10 because we thought, that's a very, very generous thing for someone to donate. And it's just like basically 1 click, 2 clicks, and the donation's made. The donation goes into it appears that you're buying something. It goes in through a Spotify, which again was a nice, simple, straightforward way from an audit point of view, so that we could keep a tally of what was coming in, who was paying, and then we could inform John from the West End Food Bank and the rest of his team, and the people who support him, so they could see exactly where the money was coming from, and every penny could be allocated and could be registered. So there we have it. We have a match day bucket, or match day virtual bucket, at NUFC Fans Food Bank, and that's the Twitter handle. What we want to do as well is wanted to give it a bit of a personality. So we're looking for ideas from people. That's why we separated it out from the normal Food Bank Twitter account, and we thought, well, it's a bit of fun as well. Let's have a bit of fun with this. Let's use it from a social needs perspective. But give the bucket its own little personality and its own life, so that we can see specifically donations that are made from Newcastle fans on a match day, or on behalf of a match day, replicating the Strawberry Place collection point. Moved it on a little bit after the conversation I had with John, and John suggested and has managed to produce for us what we're calling a little media, digital media donation. So attached to the Spotify site now, what you can do is you can click on, and because people are donating, we wanted to give something back. And we thought, what if we give a couple of little digital pictures, for want of a better word, maybe promote something, get people hand over a digital print, a digital photograph, or a couple of digital photographs in exchange for a donation. And it's the sort of digital photograph that you could use as your profile pic. You could use it as a pinned tweet. You could use it as your Twitter header. And obviously we've got Keith sitting there from NCSL, and the whole takeover, the whole NCSL, the whole getting behind NCSL seems we know it's got a life of its own, and Keith's doing that. But we thought, what a great way of supporters coming and supporting you, Keith. So what we're going to do is we've created the first one, and we've got a little NCSL NUFC food bank linked together as this digital media card. And if you donate, you'll have that. Your donation is basically for the food bank. But at the same time, if you're interested, you can, rather than donate through the bucket, you could donate through this other platform, which is attached to the Spotify site, and you can show your support for Keith. Because I don't know about you guys, but there's no other way of supporting Keith other than the statue that you were talking about, Steve, which or retweet something that he puts out, or create something, and create a maelstrom on Twitter, or create a maelstrom on social media in general. But from our perspective, we thought, what about if we just got that support, tied it in with the food bank? People could show their support to Keith at the same time as showing their support to the food bank. And then as things move on, we'll change that. Well, when Keith, and I'm saying when, because I'm a glass half full man. When Keith is successful, and when the takeover happens, and when we're moving on to something different, maybe we can use the same system with some different photographs, a different type of media platform giveaway, but at the same time show that we are unified as a support. As supporters of Newcastle United, and as supporters of each other and everything that's going on. So that's it, and that was the biggest nutshell you guys have ever covered. Because I was going to try and shrink that into 2 seconds or 2 minutes, but I've probably blabbered on.
It's a lot to get your heads around. But essentially, match day, people can donate, and that's the key. And just give the shout out to the Twitter again, where people can find it. And we've got somebody on the chat. I haven't put the questions up tonight, guys, because we get that many on a Tuesday to start with, and with Keith on tonight, we're getting double the amount, and I just would never get through them all. So we're going to go through the questions in the second half of the show, because most of them are takeover related. But Steve, just give a shout out to where people can find the book, and people asking as well, if they're not on Twitter, can they still donate?
Yeah, of course you can. You can still donate. You can just go onto the website, the www.website, which we've created. But the Twitter one is Matchday Virtual Bucket at NUFC Fans Food Bank. Nice and simple, straightforward. You want to find the link? We'll put a link and link it up to the original Fan Food Bank. The link on the Twitter account will come up. I've put it at the top of I've pinned it to the top of my old Tritonian Twitter account as well, Steve. And I would encourage everybody else, please, if you can, if you're that way inclined, and you want to help with the whole campaign of supporting the food bank as we're going through what has been a crazy few months. Please, pin my tweet, catch on my tweet, link onto it, and pin it onto your own. And let's get the platform moving. We've got over 200 followers. We've got 9,500 followers on the original Twitter account. But we want to give the bucket a life of its own and a personality of its own. And we've got 220 followers. And just to give you an idea, guys, I think the bucket itself raised over the last 2 games has raised over £300.
Wow!
Just with people clicking on and dropping a couple of quid in here and there. And that's £300 that will feed an awful lot of families over the week. And this is the generosity of Newcastle fans that I keep hammering home. People have a right to food, and there are people out there that are struggling, and everyone has a right to food. And that's the message that we're putting over as football fans right across the country, whether it's the lads from Liverpool, the lads from Manchester, the lads from Leeds, the lads from Huddersfield, the lads at West Ham in London. and all of the other fan groups that are out there that have created their own fans food bank organisations. Obviously, we all know we were inspired by the Supporting Food Banks consortium with the Spirit of Shankly and the Blue Union at Everton. But this is an important thing for society, and we talk about football clubs being part of a community, and I think we've shown in Newcastle that we are a very, very caring community. The way that everybody's got behind the food bank over the last 4 years, and we just want to keep it going, especially through this terrible situation we have with COVID. Supporting our community, support the people in our community that need that support, Steve.
Steve, fantastic, mate. Thanks for talking us through that. Glad we managed to get you a bit of a shout out on that. Get yourself onto Steve's Old Hitonian Twitter, or get yourself onto the food bank. Make a donation, and please keep helping those good people of Newcastle put food on the table.
Just
go on.
I don't think Keith knew much about this. This is purely something that we've set up. It's nothing to do with the consortium. There's no money going to the consortium, by the way. This is donations to the food banks. I know how messages can get a little bit disseminated and get a little bit mixed up.
Yeah, very true.
So
yeah.
Don't worry, Keith. We haven't just dropped you in it.
No, I agree. You said earlier, somebody come on earlier, Steve, and said, I'm not on Twitter, how would I do it? And you said, yeah, go to www. And you never give the website. Have you got that handy, just for the people who are watching tonight? Who maybe
what I'll do is I'll tag that onto the messages if you want, and then Steve can pop it up as the show goes on, if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect, mate. Great stuff.
That would probably be easier. Otherwise, guys, I've got to get back. I've Coronation Street to watch. Come on, oh yeah.
I'm recording it.
Look as though you're going on it.
Hey, not long. Won't be long.
I thought the technology wasn't my party.
Steve, look forward to seeing you on Friday night, mate. Take care. Thanks, Steve, for that.
Take care, mate. Bye.
Steve Hasty there from Newcastle's Food Bank. Fantastic gesture that by John from qtechshop.co.uk as well. He's a man with ideas, and that's another great one which we'll see the Food Bank hopefully make lots and lots of money. So we've managed to get through to almost an hour, lads, really, without talking about the takeover. I'm afraid to say the second half of the show is going to be all about that, I think, because we have got a lot of questions from a lot of people watching, and a big thank you to everybody who sits and watches NUFC Matters at home, because, to have a podcast which has started off, just really to help you, the fans, get through the horrendous lockdown situation that we found ourselves in 2020. We've grown the community from strength to strength, and we do it for free, but it's nice to be able to sit here and watch, from my perspective, how many people sit and watch us, and to have over 1,000 people watch that first hour is something I'm immensely proud of. And we just want to thank you sitting at home watching, because listening to me and Liam and Keith and Steve natter on, clearly something you must enjoy. I always find that very humbling, and thanks very much for tuning in. So hopefully give you another hour's entertainment before we all go off and have a cuppa and catch up with Coronation Street. That's Steve Hasty watching. Liam, the takeover is obviously something which we've talked about many times. It's I had a full head of hair, so did Keith, when this all started. So
there's enough hair I could share it across here, couldn't I?
Well, somebody later in the chat said, I just want Liam to put both his hands out and rub those two bald heads. It's just like right said Fred. Right, let's just try and take these as best you can, lads. There's going to be a lot of questions. I know, some of these questions we'll not be able to answer them, but look, try and work our way through them. So I'll try and pick the key ones out. Mad Mark, good evening, mate. He says, Liam and Keith, do both Ashley and the Premier League want to avoid arbitration to seek a resolution to the takeover? And it all hinges on the reinstatement of BN's licence by the General Authority for Competition and KSA. Who wants to take that first?
I mean, would it not help everybody if I said I'd love Liam.
Yeah, well look, Spenny Mags asked, just come on there and just said, can you tell us exactly where we're at with the takeover?
Right, I'll do that, where I think it's at, and then you two can jump in. But it's like when we play Everton, next game, how will we play? Or how, if Everton win, how will they beat us? And you don't know. All you know is there's going to be a game. And for me, there's going to be a takeover, and how it plays out, nobody can be certain, because what people are doing is they're coming on to Twitter and to this show, and they're asking questions about concerns they've got. So through tonight, what I wanted to do is explain some of the things people ask you, And they'll say to me, do the club not realise that if we get relegated, it's over? Yeah, I think they do. Do you not understand that Bruce is taking us to relegation? Yeah, I think we all understand that. But when you come out the takeover, they say, what happens next? You know, people ask for the date on arbitration. What's the date? So this is where I think it is, right? And I'll just run a few points down here. Is that I'm confident there'll be a takeover because with my own eyes, I've seen the arguments we've got against the EPL. I've seen them, and I've got evidence of them, and I've got evidence sitting on my desk now that to me are winnable and are indefensible actions. When people say to us who will go to court first, it's really up the Premier League, because I don't think they'll let me go in first, because I've openly said that I've got arguments that we've put to the Premier League and they couldn't answer them. And they've never tried to answer them. They've just said, we're not going to expedite your case or let you go ahead of the club. So I accept that. I accept that they have grounds to let the club go first. Who will go for the club first? According to everybody and his granny, it's Nick DeMarco and Shahid Fatima. Fantastic, top of the game, probably the best two in what they do in the country. But they're not competition action. They've got points which could even go in pre-arbitration. But if it goes to arbitration and it's a fair and open and clean procedure, I think we win that. Behind arbitration is competition actions. And the competition actions, I do not see them winning, and I'll explain that to you in a moment. So I think the cue is negotiation, arbitration, then legal competition actions. I hope, a lot of people say to me, if they settle the deal, will that annoy you? No, because I'm first and foremost a fan. Having me day in court is a bit selfish and a bit egotistical. So if we can get this deal without me getting my hands dirty, then all well and good. I contributed and I'll be off to do what I used to do. So who will it matter if who goes first? I hope, personally, that the Premier League, and I don't think they're stupid, I hope that they will see the sense that the tanks lined up on their lawn are too great for them to defend. So what they'll do is, they'll do a deal with Newcastle United on the takeover in a timely manner, which isn't without problems. But a big problem, and it'll be the first time, probably the only time you'll ever hear me give credibility to the Premier League, because I just don't like the organisation and what they stand for. But you've got to give them some credit that they've just signed a deal with Behind Sports, much to our surprise, which is $500 million, equivalent to £350 million. And that deal is a non-runner if they don't get the 45 million people in KSA in Saudi Arabia to take boxes from Behind. And there's a lot of confusion about that because there's been two press releases where people are saying, look, you can see TV on a Behind box at the moment. I'll clear that up. Last year, you could watch Behind boxes over there if you paid with a UK currency. So if you used UK money, you could see Behind boxes. They're now saying that you can renew a Behind subscription using Saudi money. But that's a renewal. But what I'm quite certain of, and people in the Middle East have said, is you cannot go and take a new subscription today of a Behind media package with Saudi money. So that cannot be done. The way around was using foreign money or foreign currency, but it's still the situation that you cannot watch Behind over there. That renders the deal, the £350 million, useless, because those top 20 teams in the Premier League, the teams in the Premier League, are not going to get the money. It's a deal for tomorrow, and that deal is never going to materialise. So give credit to the Premier League. If they sign Newcastle up today and the piracy issue hasn't been sorted, then somewhere along the line that deal's going to collapse. So how does the deal unfold? Because the deal is, there's legal action still in place today between Saudi Arabia and Qatar. There is still legal action in place. And to me, until that legal action is removed by Saudi and Qatar, I don't think that deal will fall through. I don't think it will cascade down to this. And it's my opinion that people... Liam, I'll just give you a date here, just for you to think of. If somebody said to you, Liam, give us a date, in January that the takeover might go through. What's the date you've heard? In January.
There's been loads of stuff, but the date that was bandied around by a few people not long ago was the 29th.
What's that say there?
Yeah, 29, yeah.
And what I'm saying is, that goes round and people say, oh, it's the 29th. It's a bit logical, really, isn't it? Because on the 31st, it'd be too late to get players. The 30th is probably too late to get players. So 29th, probably the last date they could do a deal. They could buy the club and get players in. So that date's been thrown around. I've heard from 3 different sources. And where we get criticism, me and Liam, for getting fans too excited or, all this pro takeover, we've got to ignore stories like that. I don't think there's a hope in hell of it happening on the 29th. But if you said to me what I think will happen now is I think that KSA and Qatar will resolve those differences. And I think when they do, Behine's argument of the Premier League disappears. Because the Premier League, in fairness, then have got their media rights, which is the only product they sell. They only sell advertising or the right to watch or the right to advertise in the stadiums. Once they've got that, I think they'll have an appetite to look and say, Christ, if we don't do this deal with Newcastle, that and that is coming at us. So where I think it's at now is, I think that Ben Jacobs said it could happen this week. I think there'll be more chance of next week that deal could, the GSA deal could start falling down. If it does, it hasn't yet, I think the impact of that will fall through this takeover. And that's where I think it is. And I think until behind boxes aren't in Saudi Arabia, I think this deal's got a major hurdle to get over. And I think people want to ignore that. And a Newcastle fan mate of mine said, well, why is it, Keith, that the Saudis don't turn around and say, we want this Newcastle deal? You don't realise this Newcastle deal is 1,000th of their wealth. 350 million is 1,000th of their wealth. So what they're more bothered about is a fight and standoff between two nations, and then it's the things that go with when they make up and be friends again, and Newcastle is somewhere in that melee. But I think as soon as that erupts and falls down, I think this deal starts getting done. Until that happens, I think it's very difficult. And then somebody will say, well, what about relegation? Yeah, relegation is a real threat. And, I don't think the Saudis will be worried about relegation at the moment. They'll be worried about getting the deal that makes sense to them. And I think the obstructive deal that stopped behind processing there would have been in retaliation to a legal fight they'd had between themselves. But the stories I hear is those could disappear, and we're talking weeks, not months, that they'll disappear in. I've heard it said by Ben Jacobs this week, and it hasn't happened. And someone said to me, when do you think? I'd say more likely next week. But it might not happen next week. But you people who've been told 29th, it's all going to happen, get your cans in. I haven't been told that.
Joe Walker says, mine is a simple question. Are we any closer? Either Mike Ashley or NCSL?
Is that me?
Well, yeah, go on, Liam. Is it any closer? By the way, John from QTech, and this shows you the power of this show, and this is what it's all about. Big shout out to George Hayes, who after hearing Steve's talk about the bucket about 10 minutes ago, the virtual bucket, has just donated £250 to the food bank. And Steve told you what £300 has done, which is raised over a match day. Somebody's just donated £250 like that. Well done, George Hayes. I know you haven't done it for the praise, but John just thought he would point that out. So thanks very much for that. And that's 250 quid to the food bank. Fantastic. And that's what this show is all about, trying to help other people out there, whether it's your mental health watching the show, but also to try and publicise things like that. And like I said, anyone's got anything you want to publicise, if it's a charity, if you need help, give us a shout. We'll try our best to help you out. So go on, Liam.
Look, I think there was a little bit of a red herring this week. I'm not going to name any names or say what it is, but there was a suggestion that the takeover is no further forward than it was mid last year. That is just totally wrong. Like, it's so wrong. It's beyond belief. Like, anybody putting that out there doesn't have a clear knowledge of what's been going on, particularly in the last month, last 3 months. They've got no clue, because it really has. And look, I've said this on Twitter numerous times, and I'll say it again on here for everybody who watches. It doesn't matter to me whether you believe what I say. You either trust us or you don't. It doesn't matter to me. I don't have to convince you that I'm doing the right thing or saying the right thing. I'll just tell you what I know. And that, I'll tell you that as a fact, is it any further? Is it no further forward than it was this time last year? Ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. It is a million miles further on. And to me, the way I would describe it is, Keith mentioned the 3 different actions. It's almost like everybody's hanging on the edge of a cliff already, and you're not sure which person's going to drop off first. It could be any of them. And it doesn't, and nobody knows if that one drops first, what impact it's going to have on the other ones. So we're at a position now where we're on the edge of something. And what I would urge to people is, it's hard, it's tough, it's terrible at the minute supporting Newcastle United. Let's be honest. I hate watching Steve Bruce's Newcastle United. It is painful. It's horrible. Look, doesn't mean you have to get negative about everything. That doesn't mean there isn't things going on behind the scenes that can't be publicised because they'll affect the deal. Can't be publicised for a number of reasons. It'll all come out in the wash when we have a decision, yes or no. But what I would say is we're definitely moving forward. Look, it might not be at the pace that everybody wants it to. It isn't at the pace that the buyer and seller wanted to. It isn't the pace any of us really wanted to. But we're on the edge of something here. And it's impossible to know when that grip will slip on any one of those little actions that's going on at the moment and what impact that will have. But when it does slip, we'll know about it because that's when things will really start rolling.
Yeah, I've just had a message from David Payne on WhatsApp, big mate of mine who we used to sit next to at St James's Park before we moved across to the Milburn stand from the Gallagher. He's going to drop £50 off through me letterbox tomorrow for the food bank. So there we are, 300 quid. We've already matched the weekend's total before, within about 20 minutes of Steve coming on. So thanks very much for that, David. Steve Corbett. Now we're wide open to be criticised, but for people to have an opinion. Steve Corbett is an alternative view. He says, you talk as if the takeover is nailed on. It clearly isn't. Why would Howe come when he knows it's Rafa's job? Obviously he's quoting you there. Don't you think it's unfair on fans who are hanging on to every word? It isn't good. So Steve's accusing you of something which you've been accused of many times on social media. I've been accused of. Liam's been accused of misleading supporters, leading them up a garden path. What have you got to say to that?
It's a good question, Steve, and I think what you've got to do is put it in perspective. When you come onto shows and people throw questions at you, answer them from your heart and you answer them as a fan. And what I got asked was, do I think I get asked regularly about Eddie Howe? And what I said, to be totally clear, was that I don't think Eddie Howe, having took a Bournemouth side down, having had a different relationship with Fraser and Wilson, was the right answer. But also, would somebody come and risk relegation? Because that would be Eddie Howe's record, would be relegation followed by relegation, when it's rumoured that Rafa's wanted to buy the takeover. If I've put that over wrong, I apologise, but I think you need to cut us some slack, because remember what I am, I'm a fan. I'm one person who's put my hand in my pocket. I haven't asked you, Steve, do you mind if I do it this way, or do you think I'm doing the right thing? What I've done, Steve, is I've given up working for a year. I've never earned a penny during this, and I've given up an awful lot more. And what I'm doing in return is I've got my head down, and when you look at when you look on my desk, you see things like that. You'll know what that is behind. So I've got documents floating around this house. Today I was investigating West Bromwich Albion, another very dubious thing. And what I'm doing, Steve, I'm not saying things nailed on, but I do think the takeover will happen. And the reason I think it'll happen is because I've invested a silly amount of money, and I've invested a year of my life. And when this comes over, Steve, if it goes down, rather than you think I'm misleading people on, what do you think my name's going to be like? What do you think people's going to be saying to Keith Patterson if this doesn't happen? Dreamer, lunatic.
They'll be blaming the estate agent.
No, it'll be. I'm not bothered to blame the estate agent. but the thing is, though, Steve, is before you criticise me for having a go, what happens if I wasn't here? Who else was going to do it? Because the one thing I don't get, Steve, is knocked over in the doorway by people saying, out the way, Keith, and they come with a wallet and say, I must pay for this. And that last promotion that was on there tonight with the food bank, I mean, the lads come to me first and said, do you want us to see if we can raise money to help you? And I turned around and said, no. I said, no, I'd rather it all went to the food bank because I don't want criticism. But also, Steve, what I don't want to do, I don't want to answer to fans. And the reason is when you're paying and you're giving all your own time up, you're working 14, 16 hours a day, and you get to bed at 3s and 4s o'clock, you don't really want to answer. Like last week, the question was, how do you know Piff haven't walked away? So do you want me to sit up at 3 o'clock satisfying people? So trust me, I'm not trying to kid fans on. I'm trying to back my judgment and keep me going and make sure that the money I've put in is invested wisely. Because my first priority, Steve, in life is me. And I've made no bones of that.
Lots of questions coming in. Let's try and get through as many as we can. And there is a few negatives, so let's concentrate on that, because I think it's important we talk to people who, you know, have got serious doubts, serious questions. Adam Telford says, if the anti-competition case is so strong, why didn't Staveley and the Rubens go and do it?
I don't know. You should go and ask Staveley and the Rubens now.
There we go. Okay. Here we go. This is another one. Keith the Beef. Obviously not going to be someone supportive of NCSL with that name. If it doesn't reach the stage of the anti-competition legal case, NCSL's agenda, what have you actually contributed towards the takeover, Keith? What have you got to do with negotiation or arbitration?
Probably more than you have, whoever gives that question.
Okay, fair enough. Look, there's a lot of people who are going to be negative, Liam, and that's part and parcel. And I haven't said it all week, but yeah, Liam, I'm going to.
I think the guy who wrote that comment, I think we know who he is.
Yeah, we know who it is, and we know the Adam Telford. They're all well-known trolls, and they're sitting on here. I tell you what's like, we're like a drug to them. They can't stay away. But well, look, they've had a pop, and fact, it's a fact of life.
Trolls for me are people who bully you madly online, and if that's what they do, you know, that's your opinion, not the opinion of NUFC Matters. However, what I will say is there is always going to be somebody on the other side of the fence, and I can understand that people are going to want to have an opposite opinion, because this has dragged on for so long. We're now coming into a calendar year where we have all been involved not only in a pandemic, where 100,000 people have died, but we've also had to watch our football club from a distance. We haven't been able to go to the games, and this bloody takeover, which let's remind everybody, has only been going on really for 3 years. We've had this, you know, constantly come back up. A lot of fans actually really believe the takeover was just, brought up by the club to stop them dipping into the transfer market in January. Look, from my perspective, I can see why some people are really, really pissed off with it, and I don't often swear on this show, but that's why, and I can understand it. I think the way that people put themselves across on social media can be, can be over the top though, and it can get it can get out of control. People pile on and join in, and that's something that's been new to you, Keith. You know, from your perspective, you've had to deal with that. You weren't a social media person, whereas I have been, and I've seen it, and Liam has as well. Liam, I want to come to you on this. Just the whole atmosphere around it. Can you understand why people are negative towards it?
Yeah, I think Mitch says it quite a bit. Jory Dentist, Neil Mitchell talks about it, and he always says it. He said it numerous Fridays when I've watched. It's takeover fatigue. I get it. I do get it. It's not just been one takeover. It's been months and years and years and years of takeovers. And people are sick to death of it. They just either want it done or done. Effectively, they want the end of it, or they want it actually done. I do get that. But that doesn't mean things aren't real. It doesn't mean things aren't happening. Just because you've chose to use that as a safety blanket, that's your little coping mechanism to say, look, I've had enough of this, it's not real. Doesn't mean it is. It doesn't mean that's true. There is things going on at the moment that can't be publicised for really, really obvious reasons. And now that's not me trying to be a smart ass and say, I know everything and I know this is going on, that's going on. There's a lot of things. I have no idea what's going on, but I know things are happening. And I think patience is one thing that we've preached a lot, and it's hard. It really is hard for people to sit back and just let it happen. But it's something me and Keith have talked about a fair bit. The fact that worrying about the deal isn't going to get it done any quicker, and it isn't going to make it go away any quicker. So unfortunately, we've just got to let these things play out, and it'll happen when it happens, if it happens. If it doesn't, there'll be reasons why, and I'm sure we'll be able to put that out there.
One for you there, Liam. Then Keith the Beat says, how is the takeover further on than it was this time last year? You're calling that ludicrous. Reported by national journalists who are more experienced than you are. So name one way it's further on.
Well, if we're going to deal in facts, you've no idea how experienced I am, and you've no idea how experienced national journalists are. So I'll put that as a fact. So come back with that one, Keith the Beef, or whatever you call yourself. How is it? How is it? How is it further on? Right. So this time last year,
God almighty.
it was nowhere near where it is now. But let's go back to even August and see how far it was. There was no clear, definitive way to get an answer. The Premier League were not going to answer the deal while it was on the table. They were not going to give a clear yes or a no. They would not finish the owners and directors test without the caveats that they'd put on it answered. They couldn't be answered. The pullout happened. It wasn't 100% pullout. It wasn't. They stayed around. Everybody knows this. People choose to doubt it. Believe what you want. There is a definitive way to get an answer now. We have an arbitration in play, an arbitration process, which we don't have the hearing yet, of course. But we're very close to potentially getting an answer. Something will happen in the not too distant future on that front. It isn't a million miles away. When we look back to May last year, it didn't move on from May to July. There was effectively 2 dead months of takeover. We're a lot further on than we are now. We're closer to an answer than we were in May, June, July. We're closer to an answer than we were in September, October. We're edging closer. The tanks have been parked on the lawn. As has been said by both the guys on the sides of me here on the show, we're getting closer. We're getting much, much closer to a decision. And look, there's certain things that I can't say. There's certain things that Keith might be able to say more. Certain things that Steve can't say. I can assure you we are much further on. And the legal cases are evidence of that. Massive evidence of that. There's a number of legal cases ongoing at the moment, and the arbitration being the key one. It is not far away from a decision. We're expecting potentially a date on that. It will come soon. We're not talking about how we were in May last year, where everybody was sort of sitting there saying, well, okay, when are we going to get a decision? We're not taking the arbitration because we've given you exactly what you wanted, and you're still not going to pass the takeover. And there was 2 months of delays. We're so much further on than that. We're so much further on. I hope that answers the question a little bit, Keith. Come back on and ask again, but do it in a polite manner.
To be honest, I don't give people more than a couple of questions. We can't make it. If he wants to come on, he could come on the 5-minute rant. I'll give him enough time on Monday, but we can't let one person take over. There's so many people who want to get through questions. I must plug Loaded Football Weekly, which follows us directly after this show. 9 o'clock tonight, the lads will be joining us, so we'll be shooting off at about 5 to 9 just to let the lads come in the studio and do their thing. So join Daz, Martin and Chris. They had some great viewing figures last week, and it's a football programme, not about Newcastle United, so you're going to get your welcome relief of talking about all of this from that show. Very funny show. Great to have the lads on. They're trying to launch their own brand, and got another show coming up very, very shortly in the next couple of weeks in exactly the same vein. More about that in due course. Please subscribe to the channel. Click subscribe. Hit the bottom right hand corner. It's free. If you want to make a donation to the channel, we don't often ask that, but you can make a membership donation. Paul Gallant, thank you very much for doing that tonight. You can also just drop a donation in by clicking the $sign at the bottom in the chat. Big shout out to our sponsor, Old Coach House Distillery.co.uk, and of course to qtechshop.co.uk, makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend. And a big shout out to John from Jab for doing all the flyers and all the hard work. And lots to get through, a lot more questions. I did highlight another one. Where is it? There, bear with us. Joe Walker. Keith, when NCSL cases won, the Premier League are guilty of breaking competition law, which equals what? Please, could you explain what your result will actually lead to for us? P.S. You're incredible, mate.
Again, go back to the order. It's my hope that the Premier League fold when Bein or Qatar make friends with the Saudis and remove their legal cases they've got in place. When that happens, I think that the EPL will then come to the table and negotiate with Mike Ashley's team and do a deal based on the removal of the piracy issues. Behind that are arbitration, and behind that are competition law. And the competition cases are being queued up by the lawyers of the EPL, who said they won't allow a court to hear them before the arbitration. But they've been given more than a flavour of what those amount to. If you ask them what it means to us, it's probably better being categorised in what it means to them. If you lose a competition case in the UK, and I'll run you through one point in a second and show you how you win a competition case. But if you lose a competition case, you can get strike off of directors, up to jail, and you can get fined 10 times of your gross worldwide turnover. So if you turn $1 billion over, you could lose 10% of that, 100 million. Let's go through why I think a competition case would win for that gentleman who put that point down. If you take something which is well known out in the circles now, by somebody actually asked earlier, why has the Rubens and Manisteri not taken a competition action? I think until we drafted our case through a top QC, competition QC, I don't think any buyer or seller had gone down or thought about the competition route. I think we gave them that route, and obviously the merits of doing that. The beauty of competition actions is you get greater disclosure, which you'll never get at arbitration. And that's the benefit of it, because we are certain with disclosure this case wins. But I'll just give you one point, which I wrote in my letter to the EPL, and which when they wrote back to us on a 9-page letter, they omitted to answer this question. There's a letter gone out from Behind Sports where Richard Keys has kindly given us evidence on a tweet he's now deleted, and he talks about Behind Sports boss writing to all the Premier League clubs. And what he's asking them to do is to lobby against the takeover of Newcastle United. I've subsequently got a letter, I've got it here, and I've just showed you the letterhead on the screen a while ago, which goes further than Richard Keys. It's a letter from Behind Sports, and one of their legal people are actually asking a question. They're saying, what's the difference between Behind lobbying clubs against the Newcastle takeover and us lobbying to get the takeover? He asked that question, and he asked that of an organisation. I gave that to Robert O'Donoghue, who's a competition QC, and he said the answer was one's illegal and one isn't. So it's not illegal to lobby for a takeover for the benefit of your club, because that's just trying to seek investment. But it is illegal to lobby, if you're financially involved, it's illegal to lobby people that have a conflict of interest with Newcastle. So the collective lobbying that's been done, we think not only have we got the letter, we've got the proof that Richard Keys says it went out, and we've also got proof that the Behind are confirming in a letter that they've actually done it. So what we've got to do is wait and see if that case comes. This guy's saying what's going to happen. Genuinely, I'm not even so sure it'll get to arbitration. I'm not so sure this won't fold and collapse as soon as the Middle East deal happens.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's all you want. And look, a lot of people commenting. There's some positives, there's some negatives, lots of positives. And I think it's good as well to see. There's people who support you, there's people who are against you, but there's also people who've come on and just said, well, I didn't really believe in what Keith was doing, and I completely disagree with what Keith was doing. I couldn't understand it, but then they've said, I've changed my mind after watching him on your podcast. So that's good, you're getting the message out, which is positive,
The thing that always beats me is let's suppose that I was sat there 3 months ago and I was thinking, God, I wish that takeover would go through. And did Dennis Wise really lose the Man City deal for us? But God, if we lose that Saudi one, will we ever compete again? And then they say, oh, there's a bloke in Hebburn, Newcastle, called Johnny, and there's a bloke in Hetley Hall called Sammy, and there's a bloke in Crook in County Durham called Billy. And they all spend a few quid trying to bring these legal points forward. I'd just sit there and say, crack on, lads. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. If I see you in the pub, I'll get your pint. But I wouldn't criticise them unless I was going to do them all myself. So when you say, the support we get's phenomenal, and I think it is 99%. But, my mates, a lad called Martin Woods, a bookmaker, phoned us up last Saturday and said to us, Pato, what's a troll? And he says, well, you're old like me, so you all know what it is. And unfortunately, people who do positive things attract people who, for whatever reason, don't want to see you get on, don't want to see you for the betterment. So I can't imagine any real, genuine Newcastle fan want to continue to watch a team who hadn't won for 3 games get 78% possession, or watch a fully funded Saudi-backed team led by Rafa Benitez. Why would they object to what I'm doing? Don't get that.
Yeah, it is. It is very strange. Liam, there's been a bit of positivity from George Culkin. A lot of people going on about that. There's been, obviously a couple of articles I've seen from George, but there's also a bit where he's, allegedly said that, that relegation wouldn't necessarily mean the end of the takeover, and that it would mean that there was potentially a different deal would have to be done, because I mean clearly, nobody in their right mind is going to pay £300 million plus for a team in the Championship. So I suppose that's given some people a bit of hope that George put that out there.
Yeah, I've got to say, it was a fantastic piece as ever in The Athletic. They did say a really good summary of where things are at. Some things necessarily that I didn't always believe myself from my information, but look, that's just the way it is. George has got fantastic sources, I would imagine. It was written by Matt Slater, Chris Waff as well. All people I respect ridiculously in this industry. I really do. But I think, from my opinion, is that I do not believe that the deal goes ahead, especially not in this way, shape or form, if Newcastle United get relegated. Newcastle United would be worth, what you're going to say, probably at least 150 to 200 million pound less when they're a Championship club than what they would be in the Premier League. So I don't believe the deal goes ahead in its current format in any way, shape or form if Newcastle United are relegated. And that is the absolute biggest danger to this deal, is Newcastle United being relegated. Look, if sources from PIF are directly saying that kind of thing, that the deal goes ahead, and look, I know they were briefing that kind of thing last year. When this happened, it was in the summer last year that even if things went south, that they would still be interested. I have to doubt it, especially at that kind of money. I mean, what is a Championship club worth? We're looking, Leeds United are really being valued. They got promoted. They've been valued at around 250 million. If you could buy a Leeds United in the Premier League, another untapped giant of the North, if you could buy them for around 250 to 300 million, why would you pay more than 300 for Newcastle United, who are in a much worse position because they're in a Championship? It doesn't make financial sense, and I don't see the deal going ahead if Newcastle United get relegated. That doesn't mean there won't be a takeover at Newcastle United if they get relegated. There might well still be a takeover. If PIF falls to bits, there might well still be a takeover. There are potential owners wanting to buy Newcastle United. It is a club that people want to buy. But would it be PIF? I would have to seriously doubt whether PIF. They want to walk through the door. Remember, this is the flagship. It might not. Everyone says it's not a big deal. It's only 300 plus million. It's more than that. It isn't. They're buying this for a reason. They want to walk through the door at St James's Park with the Saudi flags waving. This is a status buy. This isn't just a financial thing. This is them announcing themselves on the football world, very much like Qatar did with the likes of PSG. They want to announce themselves on the English game. Why would they want to do that in a lower division? It doesn't make sense. But each to their own. If that's the information the PIF are briefing, and you have to take that as it is, I would have to say, for people out there, believe me if you want, but you have to take it with a pinch of salt. Because I don't believe the deal is worth anywhere near what it is for a Championship club. And the reasons why Saudi Arabia are wanting to buy into the Premier League are for that reason, because the Premier League is so high profile around the world, and it is a way. Oh, look, we've talked about sports washing. There is a part of that to it, and it doesn't work if you're a Championship club.
A lot of questions coming in about this, so let's look at that. Jordan says new owners hope arbitration would be done by the end of February. That's from George Culkin again. What's your thoughts on that, Keith?
On the first show, you wisely told me not to make predictions. Mr.
Correct.
He turned on to me and said, "Don't, whatever you do, name a date." And I named a date then, end of March. I said I think it'll be done by the time March is out. I'll stick with that, and I still have that same belief. Because I said it based on what I'd seen and what I knew. And so far, I've heard predictions quicker and sooner and later and never. And I still stick, I think, end of March seems right. I'd like to think there'll be some real progress in February. I think February's going to be a big month for this. But, you know, I think people talk about the frustrations of it. My advice to fans is, because I agree with what you said earlier, Steve, it gets mental, it gets crazy, and
Yeah.
Mitch covers it well. Neil Mitchell got a great handle on it. He said to me, he said, you know, people do get sort of, it takes over at times, you know what I mean? And everybody is wanting to get the date, I guess, you know, ahead of the friends. Everyone wants to break the news. But for me, what I would do if I was a fan and it in any way affected us, and I get messages regularly every day saying, God, it's killing us this, it's killing us. And I always say the same, back away from it. Just put it down, let it happen. You know, there's no harm in hoping and having faith. But to me, I would just let it go for a while and pick it back up in 2 or 3 weeks and just, you know, go on your news now or pick the Shields Gazette up and get the latest update. But if it bothers you, and especially with mental health, what it is in lockdown, I would say it gets to dangerous levels that it shouldn't bother you. And it should, you know, think about people like Amanda Staveley. Think of what she's put into it. Think of who she's attracted. And think what it must be like for her waiting, saying, "Oh, Mike, have you got the deal done?" Think of what it's like for Mike Ashley. He's got 300 and something million lined up, and you've already pointed out he's lose 200 million or 150 million if it goes tits up. So for me, I think they've got more to lose than anybody. And as a fan, I daren't tell my family what I've put into this. I think they'll think I've lost the plot. So you know, and you lose your reputation. And I think, you know, Liam will be all the wrong ones if it doesn't go through. But the real answer is, I'm a fan, and so is Liam Kennedy. Just I do something different to live into him. Steve Wraith's the fan, and Steve, Liam, and Keith will get more shit than anybody else if this doesn't happen. And we're not telling you to live, eat, and drink and sleep it like we do, but we're telling you to balance it. You know, take your dog out. You know, I said to a girl last week, she was chewing like hell, and I just said, seemed a really nice lass. I said, look, Pet, take your dog out. Have a day with the dog tomorrow. Do your shopping, do your ironing, do your washing, and have a day at the coast, or, you know, go for a walk, do something nice. Because takeover is dangerous when it doesn't happen. And I'll tell you what, it'll never happen quick enough for me, because if I could get out and doing what I'm doing one day early, I'd pay for it.
Yeah, I'd agree. And yeah, I mean, it's just time. I agree with you. I just think it's just dragged on and on. But we are coming. I'm very, very convinced now that we're coming towards the end game. I think I can't see how it can, you know, drag on any longer. Look, Aaron's asking about the indication on how arbitration is going. Now, it's my understanding that we're still waiting. That's what I got. That we're still waiting for a date for arbitration. I know that the simple thing with arbitration is you have to have a chair, and it has to be a chair that both sides are happy with. And if neither side is happy with the chair that is selected, I believe that it's an FA chair. You know, they then select a chair from the FA, and that's who you're stuck with. Now, that can be a positive or it could be a negative, because that person, of course, may have their own opinion on the Saudi takeover, but they've got to, I would imagine, look at the facts that are put in front of them, and that's where we're at. So if it does go to arbitration, that's the key. Like you said, and a couple of people have mentioned again in the chat, it's, you know, it could get done before arbitration. There could be a thawing of the relationship between the Premier League and Mike Ashley through Nick DeMarco's efforts or through the pressure that you've put on, and, you know, we may well see an agreement of some description come to fruition, and, you know, that would be great.
I think as far as the arbitration goes, I think that if the Saudi behind deal collapses down and they both withdraw the legal challenges on each other, I think that could lead to a deal being struck. And it won't happen in 12 hours. You know, it might take days, and it might take a couple of weeks for them to get around the table and say, right, piracy's sorted, we want to talk to you. I think when they want to talk, if it's pre-arbitration, don't underestimate Shahid Fatima. Don't underestimate, because it's, you know, Nick's a brilliant man and he's the best at what he does, but so is she. And they both do very different things, and she's got experience on Middle East, on separation.
Bit of a shock scoreline, long way to go yet, but Manchester United 0, Sheffield United 1, 23rd minute. Unbelievable.
Got me my last man standing.
I can still see that. I can still see Man United comfortably winning that game, but you never know. Football is a funny old game. Tom Dixon asked a question, Liam. Let's turn it back to football. He said, "Do you think Steve Bruce will keep Newcastle up?"
Please, he said Liam.
Didn't say it was going to be an easier question.
It's a tough one, isn't it? It's not really. It doesn't look like it, does it? It doesn't look like it. I'll be honest, up until around a month ago, I did believe that this side had in it the ability to pull out a result from somewhere, because they've consistently done that over the 18 months Steve Bruce has been the manager. That luck seems to have run out very recently. And I think, no, I don't have faith that Steve Bruce is the man, if he stays here for the remaining games of the season, that Newcastle United will pick up at least need 4, probably 5 wins between now and the end of the season. It's difficult to know where 1 or 2 of those are going to come from if Newcastle United continue in the same vein. So, look, I think there's a strange narrative that people have wanted Steve Bruce to fail from the very start. I think a lot of people were needing convinced that Steve Bruce was the right man for the job, and I think because we all know deep down that he wasn't. And I think he's done little to convince people otherwise. And I think that's why people are largely getting onto him. And I've got to be honest, the last 10 to 11 games, I've not really seen, I've been watching Newcastle United for 30 years, and I've not noticed or seen a Newcastle United side as bad as this. Not one that doesn't look, it's not that we're not scoring, we're just not looking like scoring either. So, I think he probably isn't. Do I think they'll change imminently? No. Do I think there's something more to this Graeme Jones thing? I hinted that earlier in the show. I do. I think the social media of the club today painted a certain picture which doesn't ring true with the words that were written. Effectively, that he's the joint assistant manager. It looks a lot more than that, and I'm not saying it is. But look, I hope he comes in today and has a big impact on this club. I really do.
Is there any truth in DeMarco's tweets? I mean, he's been very cryptic again, hasn't he? And somebody asked, they said, yes or no, I'll do. Have either of you spoken to Nick DeMarco? I certainly haven't spoken to Nick DeMarco. No, it's not my business to be speaking to him. But look, there's a lot of tweets being put out with him, and the most definite one, Keith, was that one where he was at Old Trafford. Arsenal, sorry, the Arsenal game. Arsenal, that's right. And we've had a lot of criticism cryptic bread tweets, but that was the first one that actually said, "I'm here," and good meeting with Newcastle.
Yeah, and he'd be at a meeting with the club, and London-based people would be allowed to go to the game, and he and lawyers would go along, and his message would be direct if he felt that would benefit people knowing what he's doing. So Nick DeMarco's his own man, and he's I think his tweets are great. I've seen them criticised by people online, and I think it's ludicrous. I think he's a cracking man. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's got lined up, and I think he's got arguments that can't be beat. But, yeah, spoken to before. If that makes you feel better.
Okay, Darren says, I'd like to say to Keith, thank you for doing everything that you've done so far, and good luck in getting this deal through. And 1 million% behind NCSL and NUFC matters, says Paul. Lots of positive comments coming in like that. Gary Hannant, do you think there are people scared of Newcastle for the future, knowing that something will happen? Says Gary. He's talked a little bit about the big six, etc. Liam, we've spoken about that on the show before. We do feel as if there's been outside interference, hasn't there? Really, which has caused that.
Sorry, what was that you cut out there?
Can you hear us now? Yeah, I'm just saying, essentially, Gary's just saying, do you think people are scared of Newcastle? I think he's talking about the big six, which we've talked about on the on the show before.
Are they scared of Newcastle United? I don't know. I think they didn't want Newcastle United to sort of jump in on that party, really. I think that's effectively what they didn't want. I don't think there's necessarily a fear there, but look, PIF aren't going to come into this without ideas on really sort of making a mark in English football. So I'd imagine that, they'll come in and have a big impact, and that is with that is going to come sort of a little bit of a fear factor, because we're talking about money, we're talking about places in the division, we're potentially talking about silverware down the line. I know that sounds like a really alien thing to talk about as a Newcastle United fan or writer, but look, if PIF come on the English scene, then they're going to make a big impact, and there could be that fear there. But do I think it's an immediate fear now? Not necessarily.
Question for you there, Liam, as well. Any truth about a £7 million cut price deal for Omar Colley?
I don't see Newcastle United spend any money in this window, so it's hard to know whether they would do any deals. Like I said, there's been a narrative in that sense. So I don't really see any idea that they'll do that. No.
Julio G says he's just asked the dog if she wanted to go out for a long walk tomorrow, but she says she'll be busy washing her hair, Keith. Classic. Mark says, on separation, Rishtad Marsh says done that job for the QCs with a letter he wrote to Khashoggi's fiancée explaining the PIF was a company based in KSA.
Don't even understand the question if you want the truth.
I think he's just making a statement rather than asking a question. Tim says, great show, lads. Keep it going, bud. Geordie legend. David Crone as well says, well done, Keith. Keep up the good work, mate. That's not for Keith the Beef, who's got his love set and turned up too high. Dear me, oh man. Keith the Beast's now come out as Rob Kensington. Good evening, mate. Look, if you've got issues, mate, and you want to discuss it, I think you're probably better off taking it offline and taking it off the show. It's probably the best thing to do if you've got a serious problem with Keith. But look, we're trying to get through as many questions as possible. I've given you an audience tonight. I've given you an opportunity to have your say. I hope you appreciate that. Trey and Son says Keys leaking confidential info when his good friend Hoffman was appointed by the Premier League. Coincidence? I don't think so. Rents Gibson says the fact that Amanda Staveley has remained silent is enough for me to remain confident. If this was not going to plan, we would have heard. Respect, chaps. Getting back to the football, Jason says Bruce said last night that this is his worst run in 20 years. Self-obsessed and completely detached from the club, which is, it's a good point. Adam Telford, who is certainly coming across as a realist, says DeMarco is just a bloke that likes baking bread. There is nothing in the pictures. Adam, exactly what I said, to be honest, when I first saw them, mate. So You know, but you say he's a troll, but look, Adam's got his own opinion.
100% troll.
He's got his own opinion, and like from my perspective, everybody is entitled to that. Sean says, "Great show, lads. Loved it tonight. Keith's statue outside the Bury for me. That won't please the trolls. This bloody statue, it'll be getting hide around till bloody God knows what time in the morning." Nicholas, me mate from Felon, says, "If the Fiddlers was open, we could ask Graeme Jones, aka Bonner, the crack, straight as a die bloke, grew up with him and his brother, give him a chance." Fair enough, mate. I don't know him. I honestly don't know him, but that's great, you know. Keith Roll says, "Great show. Thanks very much, mate." Let's finish off, lads, because I know the lads from Loaded are wanting to get on. I'll go with the last couple of comments. Will Crowther says, "Just want to thank NCSL for helping get an A on me A-level politics report. Cheers, Keith." And Kieran Mansfield says, "Liam, has anyone put it to Bruce that past unpopular managers have walked, no pay, or left under no pressure? If he's your fan, he needs to step down." Has anyone done that?
No, nobody's done that. And what I would say is, he's not going to walk away. He won't walk away. And managers just don't do that. We live in a society where politicians used to fall on their sword. They don't, no matter what happens to them. And football managers are certainly no different. So I don't think walking away anytime soon. He'd be due a reasonable payoff as well if he does get the sack. So I think he'll probably be hanging around for that if he can.
Just a quick one on the press thing, Liam. You're a part of the press corps in the North East. What did you make of that decision that was made this week?
Quite an incredible one, to be honest. Very soft-shelled, very, very flaky. I think getting offended by coverage of certain things, thinking it was personal. Look, you're a football manager. Your performance is out there for every single person to see on a Saturday or a Tuesday or Wednesday night. You put that team out there in your image, and it's one of those jobs where there's no hiding place. So I think as your manager, you expect to be judged. I don't think any of it's got personal in particular. Look, fans get personal, but I don't think journalists have got personal. And for me, Steve Bruce was hiding because he didn't want he didn't have answers to the questions. It was either that or somebody was doing him a favour and protecting him a little bit, because some of his recent comments have been quite incredible for a manager. And I think instead of pointing the finger, it's always easy in life to point the finger at everybody else and say you're to blame for your own woes. But looking in the mirror is probably the best thing, and I think Steve Bruce needs to do a little bit of that. Instead of pointing the finger at everyone else, Rafa, the fans, whoever it may be, needs to sort of point it towards himself a little bit. And I think maybe there's going to be a little bit of that over the next few weeks. Look, this decision could be the best or the worst decision made by the hierarchy at Newcastle United. So we'll just have to wait and see on it.
Man United have had a goal disallowed. Still Sheffield United winning 1-0, and Everton 1, Leicester 0. Colin Wilson, hope you get well, mate. He says, "Great show, lads. I've been unwell for a while. This has cheered me up." Steve Hastie's not happy. He says he's just bought a bread machine and now I found out DeMarco might be a real baker. No wonder his loaves look good. Keith, how do you want to finish off, mate? Oh, Rotherham 3, Borough 0. Wow, that's a bit of a hammering. Keith, how do you want to finish off tonight? Because we're going to have to shut down because the lads from Loaded Football are coming on.
Just thank the fans. The amount of praise and the amount of it's been overwhelming. Didn't expect it at all. I just thought when you set off to do something on your own, people would just let you quietly do it. And I didn't expect to get what there is, 10,000 followers and just every day, hundreds and hundreds. And the real fans, which is 99% of them, are phenomenal. And they just want the same as me. And you sometimes ask us daily things like, do you think it's going to happen? Trust me, if I didn't, I'd turn the light off. I'd get out of this, what I'm doing now, at a heartbeat. And there's better things to do in life than fight away without pay. And just if you like, try and satisfy or try and carry the weight or hopes of 100,000 Newcastle fans on your shoulders. And it does worry us. It does make us. My best pal's a solicitor, and he said it's either the stupidest thing or the best or the greatest thing you've ever done. And I say there's more days where I think the stupidest, but I've committed, and I don't think I'll be doing it beyond Easter. And you know, I've met people along the journey, like the lads on here tonight, who want the same as me. And there's a lot of drinks lined up when we get it through. And all I can do in the meantime is just thank you for your backing, thank you for your help. But remember, I'm just one fan, and I'm an ordinary bloke, just doing my best.
Big shout out to Riverside Falconry, great place. He says cracking show again, lads. Cheers, look them up on the internet. Lots of positives, mate. You know, there always is, and you know, from my perspective, just want to thank you for coming on and you know, coming on with me and Liam. It's great to have you on. You know, from our perspective, it's just nice to have you on, being able to answer those questions, and hopefully putting the majority of people who watch, you know, their minds at rest. Liam, great to have you on as well, mate. As usual, we'll look forward to getting back to business next week, me and you, for an hour 6 till 7. Get you back in the good books, and thank your missus, please. And I'm back tomorrow night with Super Mac and Gibbo, 6 o'clock till 7. If you haven't been on the channel before and you haven't seen it, it's always well worth a watch. We tend to run a book on when Malcolm's internet's going to go off, and he's done quite well in recent weeks. He's gone right till the end, but I've got a feeling it might be an early finish with Malcolm tomorrow. I don't know why, but great to have you on. Don't forget, 5 minutes time, Loaded Football starts. Loaded Football Weekly with Daz, Martin and Chris Hall. But Keith Patterson, Liam Kennedy, thanks as always, lads. Take care. Good night.
Cheers. Thanks.
Cheers.